Welcome, everyone, to episode 13 of the Total Relationship Podcast. My name is Kim Kokenauer, COO at Form Wealth Advisors, joined by my co-host Tyson Ray, the CEO of Form Wealth Advisors. In this episode, we are going to touch on a hot topic in our industry right now for firm owners and future leaders, talking about integrating the NextGen Advisor. First, we're going to kind of walk through the why. Actually, do you really want to put in the time and be honest with yourself about bringing someone onto your team to move your firm forward? And what you really need to do to focus and nurture that relationship, and kind of the new language we're trying to push here about apprenticeship. So as we wrap up that today, we really hope that you join the conversation. Let's jump in. So Tyson, one of the things we talk a lot about around here is evaluate your why. I know Simon Sinek wrote a really good book about it, but when you're thinking about bringing in that next gen advisor, how hard did you think about, are you really interested in doing it? Why are you bringing someone in? So why did you make that a focus of this firm?
Because effectively, when I started in my career, I became the NextGen Advisor of the senior advisor stockbroker who had been in the business for 40 years, who was in his late 60s and realizing it wasn't his daughter, that was the original plan, but that's not what she wanted. Mm-hmm. And realizing he couldn't retire until he could find someone he could trust to take over the client relationships. And the reality of the business that we're in is the greatest struggle in the next 10 to 20 years of this transfer of wealth that everybody's excited to hear, the opportunity of this wealth transferring. Oh, yeah. Is if you're a financial advisor listening to this and you have a household that has $1 million or $2 million and they have 2 or 3 kids, assuming you can keep all of the assets and the kids don't need the money for things outside of the investments, let's just assume that they don't. You're going to go from servicing 1 household to servicing 3. I think we have quantified for 800 households that we oversee, we have 2,500 client kids. So the same assets, the same revenues, the work's going to increase. And how are you going to service that work? And are you the best person to service that work, depending on if the $1 million relationship or $2 million relationship becomes a couple $100,000 and they're in a different phase of life? That may require could require a different advisor with a different skill set or a different age. And I think some of these next generation clients want to make sure they're working with someone who's not going to retire in their retirement.
That's a big
someone that's going to have accountability of the decisions that are being made, that can be held accountable 10 to 20 years down the road, that when they're looking at you as the senior advisor, they may not see. And I found from doing some of this, as this next generation, for all of the stereotypes it has, there are great people that can come in and actually elevate the practice with their ability to use technology and understand concepts and bring maybe a more modern or current way of communicating to a generation I don't connect with.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we've talked about internally in bringing in the next gen here in our firm is you need to have the time and energy to put the work into that next gen advisor before you're 70 years old and you're ready to run out the door and you don't have patience to actually be in the office to teach and train. Because that's a huge part of that, is that's an investment on your time, which we all know is the one resource you don't get any more of than anyone else on this planet. And so I think that's important. So why did you choose to evaluate it from that standpoint with where your energy is at right now to make the choice now instead of waiting 20 years or further down the road?
Yeah. So as I'm coming up on 50, I have plenty of friends and colleagues that have had their own successful careers that are a decade older than I am or older. And they're very much enjoying a quality of life work balance that they've earned the right to have and the success that they've had. And yet, because they didn't bring in or didn't feel they needed to bring in the junior advisor to basically help take those relationships over, what we found, and we've actually had junior advisors reach out to us because they're working for a senior advisor, but because that senior advisor takes so many vacation days or spends months somewhere warm or whatever in the winter, that they're not being mentored. And you can have all the policy and procedures for them to look at and want, and you can tell them how to do some things, but sometimes it's just the day in, day out relationships, the bumping into each other with getting coffee or what have you, to basically teach and speak into little things, even just about having a relationship with them, that without that, there's a leadership void, and I don't think you're going to get the people that your clients probably need you to get. You're definitely not probably getting the compliment of who you are if you're not taking the time to be there or build the team out that can help mold and guide and love on this next generation in a way that can create the legacy you're looking to create.
Yeah. Well, and you spend your career building these relationships with clients to be able to pass that along to someone. To your point, you can have the note in the CRM, but there's something about having the conversation with that next gen advisor, explaining some of the historical stories or some of those connection points so that it helps transfer that relationship in a more authentic way instead of just being like, oh, yeah, the Smiths are coming in, the notes are in the system, I'm going to go play golf. Like you have the opportunity to actually build that relationship before the next gen advisor sits in on that meeting and be in the driver's seat from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think the void for most advisors that are uh, at the tail ends of their career is either the quality of life of not wanting to be in the office to do the work to love on and mentor and lead that next generation, and I think there's an ego of not being willing to let go of or bring someone else into that relationship with the idea that that person actually might be able to enhance the relationship and make it better.
Yeah. So then why wouldn't the advisor, so let's talk to that advisor. If you are in that seat and you don't want to bring someone else on and you don't want to let that go, and you know, and everyone has an ego, we're all human. Why wouldn't you just sell your practice to the big aggregators and be done?
Well, there are plenty of them that are doing that. I think of the five, I think there's probably five of maybe the seven practices that we acquired over the years that they didn't bring on that junior advisor, but they wanted, they reached a point where, okay, here, we'll take it over and this is what we're going to do. But knowing that the values of the clients were going to be, put first, and we're not going to just go churn the practice or go sell a bunch of products down clients, push a bunch of products down clients' throats. Um, but there's a lot of advisors that are struggling with what their exit's going to look like, because they also, you need, um, short of trying to hire an already established advisor, which is a different headache if you can even find them. And on our end, our next gen advisors take probably 2 to 5 years to really grow into the role of taking some things over. So, okay, you want to retire in the next 5 years, like you got to start today.
Yeah.
And we feel like one of the opportunities in the industry going forward is being able to cultivate these junior advisors and be able to almost create a placement service of being able to put them in offices to help take over clients and complement or give the solution to the advisor that never got around to hiring the one they needed.
Yeah. And so part of what I think is important to talk about is kind of shifting the mindset around it just being a new hire. And maybe you're hiring someone who's fresh out of college. They might even have their SIE under their belt. You're really needing to view that as an apprenticeship instead of as a new hire, and they're going to be able to hit the ground running. They might have some book smarts, but they need some time walking alongside an advisor, sitting in those client meetings, kind of putting some of that intellectual knowledge into practice and taking that time to apprentice them. So talk about that process and why you needed to, like, why we switched the mindset of a new hire and it's an apprenticeship.
I think it's both. For the truth of the matter, you don't know if it's going to work out, right? So you're afraid to hire someone because that may be a permanent hire, and there may be expectations around that, both from the person you're hiring and for yourself. And especially with this younger generation that grew up with the social media aspects and tweeting and everything else, or texting, it's like we have proof of interns that have come in and spent a few months in the office that after 3 months there was no way we'd hire them, but we stuck with it while they did their last year of college and continued to help teach them and give them experiences and give them opportunity to kind of find their professional voice that they've never really known if they
I
even
haven't had
have
the
one.
chance to do it yet.
And then it's a numbers game, right? It's like, no, you can't hang your hat on one. You might need 2 or 3 interns for a summer to find possibly one that could be hired a year or two later. And again, it's ironic that we all preach long-term investing, but we all want these short-term solutions, especially if you're looking at trying relieve yourself of the stress of being overwhelmed of a practice that basically has grown out of your capabilities and you don't have the team to support it. The compliance and the workload keeps getting harder and harder, and your time is passing that you're marching towards this desire to do less, possibly transition, possibly sell your practice. Your spouse is just begging you to basically walk away because you've been doing it for too long, or you've made too many sacrifices over your career that now they want to cash in those chips, and you're not set up to solve that problem.
Yeah. And I think one of the solutions for the advisor looking to bring someone in shouldn't be looking for the rainmaker. You've built your own natural network. You've got all of the people that are coming to you on your own. There's a value in having that next gen advisor so that you can go out and tap into your own natural network, since you're the rainmaker and the visionary, and bring someone in who can kind of do those tactical pieces while they're learning.
Yeah, the big for decades, the misconception in this industry is the financial advisor wants to hire the junior financial advisor to come grow my business for me. And
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, that's like winning the lottery if you find that person, because what you're basically doing is you're finding the person they don't know they have those gifts and talents, because if they have any inkling or any desire to basically be an entrepreneur and be a rainmaker, they're going to go be an entrepreneur and rainmaker. Yeah. Now there's tons of stories of the advisor that hired the junior advisor to basically be the rainmaker for him. That junior advisor found out that they were the rainmaker and eventually left that senior advisor because it's like they weren't letting go enough of the control to keep that person. Because you gotta basically try and, if you find one of those gems, you gotta basically give them the runway to be able to do the job. Yeah. What most advisors don't realize is you probably actually don't need that rainmaker. What you need is the caretaker. It's someone that can come on and love on the clients that are established, the clients that nothing's changing. They just need to be touched and loved on and cared for and have this total relationship that we talk about applied to their life. And updates can roll up to you, but you don't necessarily have to be the one doing the check-in. And that's that's a different skill set. Two, I feel, and we've proved in it to ourselves, that's an easier hire. Mm-hmm. And ironically, often it's not necessarily the person that's the finance major, the economics major, the numbers guy, the portfolio person, right? The person that's going to go add value because of the stocks or how we're going to invest. No, it's someone that actually cares more than you do to know what the dog's name is.
Yeah.
Or to know what the health environment. Yeah. Huh?
They've got the skills to sit at the table.
Correct.
Or answer the phone call, walking someone through the situation that they've not had to before because their spouse passed away and they need some support. And who do I call for this? Or what's this question? Or being able to walk alongside of it. I think one of the things you can look at is, if you can teach people the technical skills of the industry, what you can't always teach are the people skills. And through a mentorship and apprenticeship for a next gen advisor, you can kind of imprint your firm's process into it, and then let the relationship part of it really build and nurture because the person's already coming to you with that skill. But it's also important that you have a structure for them to follow. We've really developed a process for our internships with the help of one of our former interns who's now a full-time employee, to really kind of create some structure to give them an experience of what it's like to work in a firm, because it's not a big wirehouse. You're not sitting there where you're working in a cubicle. The practices in the local community have a very different feel. And so you have to have something for them to follow, because I genuinely believe this next generation of employees is looking for a lot more out of their workforce than what the retiring advisors came into. They're looking for that structure. They're looking for mentorship. And if you slap them in a cubicle and you slap 50-pound weights on their ankles, no wonder you can't keep anybody. Like, you have to have something in place for them.
Yeah. And at the same time, what's exciting about this industry is how ripe it is for just human interaction and for being prompt in a response, right? I mean, the clientele, the retiring client is at some point dealing with having to interact with the Social Security Administration, Medicare, any kind of hospital administration, insurance. You're sitting on hold, you're pressing a bunch of numbers, and you're never getting a response. And one of the benefits of hiring this next gen advisor that grew up with technology is their ability to multitask, and little Johnny on the spot responding back to an email, returning a phone call is like the lowest common denominator of expectations that all of a sudden get exceeded. That, hey, if you're the senior advisor and you're not checking your email day in and day out, or you're not able to be as responsive as you were, you can enhance the client experience by bringing on an associate who all they do is say, I'll get back to you, but they responded.
Mhm. Yeah. And the most recent statistic on that is a client expects an email response back with you for within 4 hours. It's not the next day, it's 4 hours. And so, and we all know we have got tabs open on two screens. We know your email's open, and clients expect that out of you. So, how do you equip someone to kind of handle that day to day? So, I want to shift, Tyson, because you've had the opportunity over the last few years kind of growing up the next gen advisors in our firm and taking over and helping take over the relationships. How has that actually shifted for you, your new day to day? Because I think some advisors don't really take that next step because they can't conceptualize what is it that they're going to be doing if this is the one thing they've always done forever. Like, so talk a little bit about your new day to day.
Yeah, I think over the last, 5 or 6 years, we've probably had 8 interns.
Mhm.
We've hired 5 of them. We have in the last year, 4 of them have gotten their CFP designations. Um, and again, what's amazing about our business is if you step outside of financial services, and I do some coaching with Strategic Coach where I'm getting around other business owners from other industries, you can pick up some things. And so, like a dentist practice or a medical practice, these junior associates, I would say, hey, Kim, as the client, I'm going to have our junior associate or our intern sit in with us, because there's a lot of this business you can't learn in a book. And because the doctor's having the junior doctor or the associate or the even the scribe being in that meeting, the dentist has other people around them. The clients are somewhat used to that, and now they're part of the learning is learning the questions that are asked, how the nonverbal communication is received and communicated, and by allowing them to get out from the computer screen and get into the face to face, there's so much more education that can be given and experienced and being able to be seen that can't happen even on a Zoom, much less on an email or a computer or a book. And it's being willing and vulnerable enough to go share these relationships with other people, which actually can make the relationship better. It certainly can make the documentation and the capturing of what matters better, because there's someone there listening instead of asking the questions and trying to think about what's coming next in the meeting and all the things advisors are processing in their head while they're having an annual review or having an interaction with a client. That we have in every meeting another associate that their sole role there is basically capture what's being said, and therefore I don't have to go back after the meeting and either dictate or try and communicate to the associate that's going to go help create the accounts or paperwork or do some of these other tasks why or what was said in the meeting. They're hearing it firsthand, and it just makes the workflow go so much better, and it allows then that associate even to follow up with the client. And I'll even say in the meeting, so I'll have Kim follow up with you on so on and so forth, and they're happy to talk to Kim again because they know who Kim is and so on. And it is a way to process out and quickly learn and roll up. And reach out to us. We're happy to share this process with you. We've been doing it for several years. Because I think a lot of advisors, they know they have the problem, but they don't know where to start. But where you have to start is admitting you need to do something differently, and then you need to not play the perfect game that you can't hire the perfect person. You have to give yourself some time to maybe make the wrong hire and then transition that person out and find the next person. And this is where you brought in some wisdom of just hiring people temporarily. We brought associates on. It's like, hey, we're going to give you, it's like an internship. We're going to give you a 6-month time to see if you're a fit for the firm. And we were honest with them within 3 to 4 months, not a fit. And so then we spent the next few months letting them kind of wrap up their career, build out their little resume of what they had in their experience with us, and then let them go find a different place while we brought on another associate to see if they're a fit.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the slow burn and that investment of time, like you said, we're long-term investors in the market. We need to be long-term investors in our team, and that it's okay that you bring someone in who's got that culture fit, but it's going to take some time to download all that intellectual capital. If you're an advisor who doesn't actually have a CRM where this is documented, it's going to take you a lot longer. You built the mess, but you can get out of it, right? The show hoarders works. They see people get out of those houses and they can clean it up. Same thing with what your intellectual capital is it takes time to download it, but it's worth it because Tyson, what I've seen in you and what we've been able to grow in the firm is that you can delegate down that day-to-day stuff, but you're still there to jump in and be the surgeon and help solve the problems and teach and mentor. But it's allowed us to grow the practice and focus on other areas and allow you to do only the things that you can do. And I think for the advisor out there, it's important to realize you do have other gifts and talents that your firm needs from you, whether you want to grow it to a large practice or not. You still have other things that you can bring to the table to do. And I've seen you do that well. Have you found a sense of purpose in that next stage of your career?
Yeah, and I've said it a couple times. Part of trying to figure out what this person would do, then there's coaching out there and assessments that you can take. Is what are the things that you don't that just suck the energy out of you? And strategic coach Dan Sullivan, taught me that. Which is hard to believe because we all think everybody else is just like us, right? So if I don't like this, of course, no one's going to like this. And that's actually not true. Dan Sullivan teaches that actually what you don't like, God probably created someone that loves. And so part of this is being honest with yourself and writing down what are the things you don't like. If you have anybody else in the office, have them help point out what you don't like, because they'll tell you what you get upset about or where you lose your, where you make mountains out of molehills and so on and so forth. And you lose your cool or you get more emotional than you should about the topic. And if we can identify enough of those, that may be the position that this associate takes over. And the more I've gotten delegated away and the more you have helped manage away and keep from coming back to my plate, the more I've been able to kind of stay in the place that's where the book has come from. And that's where these podcasts have come from. And that's the ability for us to try and go and make a difference in other advisors' lives so they can make a difference in clients' lives, because that's something I get excited about. And yet, and the most important things, the team knows where to bring me back in. Or if a client just simply asks, hey, I want to see Tyson. I want to talk to Tyson. I want Tyson to be in a meeting. Great. I'm there. And it's kind of like I keep coming back to my dentist because my dentist's name is Chad. And if you ask me who should have his dentist, everyone should have Chad. I love Chad. I don't remember the last time I saw Chad. I've had my teeth cleaned there probably for the last 2 or 3 years, every 6 months. And someone checks and then they ask, which dentist do you want? I could say I wanted to see Chad, but they basically want, do you have a dentist or you want to take whoever's available? I'm like, take whoever's available because like time is money. Get me out of here. I want to go. I got other things to do. And yet it's Chad. And what Chad has built is a team of people to keep him as a concept front and center, and like values, like experiences. And we can do the same in the financial services. It doesn't have to be you to make all these check-ins or all these calls or all the have-tos. It's identifying, what do you want to do? What do you get? What excites you with that? And there's multiple hats. The bigger you get, it's like you have to start figuring out, okay, do you want to wear the portfolio hat? Do you like the research and how managing money? Because that's a part of it, especially with how clients take money in and out. Do you want to do the client service and making sure everybody's okay and how those relationships are going? Or do you want to do the acquisition part of new clients and prospecting and the sale or the ability to bring someone on and start making a new difference? Because all of those are necessary. And the bigger you get or the longer your practice is and the more clients you end up having, you start wearing multiple hats. And the reality is, whether it's hiring a team associate like we did for you, that's the CEO that's running things and managing the team and having nothing to do with clients, or you're hiring the junior or the NextGen advisor to basically apprentice underneath you to help you with the growth that you're having. Or if you find the rainmaker, it's just to help go find and bring in the new clients. It's like all of those pieces free you up to do what you are feeling your best gift is. And often it's not all three, it's only one of those three channels.
Yeah. So I think it's important we leave listeners with kind of a next step. If this resonates with you, you're kind of needing that next piece, evaluate your why. Are you actually interested in bringing in a NextGen advisor because you've realized that's the seat you need to fill? Put some perspective around it. It's going to take you some time to have that runway to put that person in place, even on the administrative and operations side, and keep perspective. You're going to have a new day-to-day on the other side of this, but it's really important that you put in that time now so you can free yourself up. So Tyson, what else do you want to leave with listeners today as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think I have some very very successful, respected, love these advisors that are shocked at the reality that they did it all right. They hired the junior advisors, they built the team out. Now they're going to go do a succession within the team, and the valuations are such that the team said no. I don't want to take on that debt. I don't want to buy that. So part of your why is to figure out what problem are you trying to solve. And if you're trying to solve a succession problem, try and really understand on the front end, are you hiring the people that want to take that risk? Because a lot of the associates that I see in the industry that have been hired on went into that NextGen Advisor role, that supporting role, because they don't want that risk. And so make sure if you're trying to build out your plan for what your succession looks like, if it is going to be an internal succession, make sure you got the people that want to take on that banknote to allow you to monetize your practice, or you may find yourself in a situation that you thought you had something that you really don't have. The other part of the NextGen Advisor is realizing it's helping answer the question the client's thinking is, what if something happens to you, what do I do? Especially if it's just you and an associate, or if it's just you. And that NextGen Advisor, and why we bring them into the meetings, is to build that relationship that they can see. Here is now the person that if down the road I'm going to retire or something happens to me, you're building out someone else who that trust can be transferred to and that relationship can be continued with.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for tuning into episode 13 of the Total Relationship Podcast. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe and follow button so you know when new episodes come out every other Tuesday. And then check out the episode description link for resources to connect with Tyson and I on LinkedIn. Especially a shout out over to the Total Relationship page where you can find a community of like-minded advisors. Visit totalrelationship.com to learn more about our approach. And until next time.